Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Galaxy View. I'm your host Mark Bridge, and I'm here with Zak Wojnar.
That's me.
And I'm pleased to say we have a special guest, our very first guest on Galaxy View, Scott Collura from IGN.
Hey there. How's it going?
I'm good. Welcome, Scott.
Mm. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
It's an honor for me as well, to have you on board.
Well,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
you're established in the business. I've been reading your work a long time now on IGN, so
Oh, well, thanks. That's
yes.
nice to hear. Usually I only hear the people who complain in the comment sections about my work, so it's nice to hear someone who actually is saying something nice for a change.
Yeah, it's you always get that people complaining about. It's like it's not you who created the news. You're just reporting on it, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't have anything to do with Megan Fox joining Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever. If
Right.
I had that kind of power, then I probably wouldn't be writing articles on a website. I'd be hanging out with Megan Fox probably. So,
Right. So before we get started, since you're our first guest and all, ask just a couple of questions to get to know you. Easy questions, so you don't have to worry. Um,
okay.
like first off, where did you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island in New York.
Right.
Um,
So born New Yorker.
born New Yorker. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Grew up on a town called Bayshore, which is the South Shore, kind of right near, kind of a beach town in a way, near the beach. And I just went to high school here, did the whole thing here. Went to high school, and then I went to college in the city, in New York City. I went to NYU and I studied film there.
Hmm.
And then from there, I kind of did what a lot of people do who get film degrees, which is I went and got a job that had nothing to do with film,
Right.
uh,
I
you
know the
know,
feeling.
so, and then bounced around and did a few different things, and then eventually kind of landed. I started writing about movies, kind of as a hobby. And this was sort of around the time that the internet was really becoming, like the late '90s, where things were really becoming, big with the web and all.
Right.
And then I just started, sending out some samples of my work to some of my favorite websites, and eventually, people started to give me some jobs here or there, and eventually, I was able to turn this into a full-time thing. But it took a while to get there, to get to that point, for sure.
Right.
Had my girlfriend yelling at me all the time that I was a lazy bum because I didn't have a full-time job.
Right. Right. The second question. What was the movie that you saw that made you want to sort of be in the industry, the film industry? Can you remember that as far back?
Uh, Gosh, well, I think there's probably several, but
Uh-huh.
the first, um, gosh, Star Wars is like the easy
Yeah.
answer,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure that it was Star Wars necessarily. You guys remember a movie called The Omega Man?
I never saw it, but I know about it. It's basically what I Am Legend is based on, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
It was an earlier version of I Am Legend.
yeah.
It starred Charlton Heston, and it's a pretty cheesy early 1970s end of the world movie. And he's the last man on Earth, and there's these like mutants who are trying to hunt him down, and drives around with a machine gun, and I mean, it's just Charlton Heston being Charlton Heston. But like, it was just one of those movies. I was a kid. I don't know how old I was. I was probably too young to be watching it. I caught it on TV late night,
Hmm.
and I was just really into it. And it was those end of the world movies that I think really kind of got me into a movie. That I don't know why, but for some reason that appealed to me. But then the Mad Max movies also really I really became fixated on them. And then me and my friends in the neighborhood, we would make our own short movies on Super 8 film, and they always would be end of the world movies. A guy fighting, the last man on Earth. They were total rip-offs of movies like the Omega Man. So that was probably Omega Man was probably one of the first ones that really, for some reason, that kind of hooked me into the idea of making my own version of that story, I guess. And
Right.
of course, now I don't really. Now I just write about film. I don't really work I don't work as a filmmaker per se.
Yeah.
So
That's still a great job to write about it. You're still in it. You get to consume it.
mm,
So that's still
Yeah,
good.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah. And I guess, do you have a favorite film by any chance?
Favorite film? I think that that probably changes for me on a daily or weekly basis, kind of like what I'm into at the moment or what if I've seen something. And there's definitely movies that I come back to again and again.
Hmm.
Um, and so my favorite movie at the moment would maybe be, and this I don't know, this is your listeners are going to think there's something wrong with me, but it's like another end of the world movie. But I just caught uh, last week they had a Planet of the Apes marathon on,
Right.
and I caught Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which is the second Planet of the Apes movie, and it's the one with I don't know if you guys remember it, but they find this like the ruins of New York City where these mutants live there, and they peel their faces off and they worship an atomic bomb. It's just this crazy movie from like 1971 or whenever it came out, and everyone dies at the end, and like it's just this insane movie. And I just happened to catch that on AMC last week,
Hmm.
and I DVR'd it, and I've watched for some reason I like watched it like 2 times in the past week because it was like one of my favorites from when I was a kid. So
Right.
at the moment, that's maybe my favorite movie, and it's not even necessarily a good movie
Right.
or a great
It is
movie
an
or anything.
excellent movie.
I mean,
I
I would,
love Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
yeah, so it's not going to make the American Film Institute's list of the best movies necessarily, but that doesn't mean anything, does it?
Mm-hmm.
But I think my favorite movie changes all the time, which that I'm sure you guys have favorite movies that you might have your all-time favorite, but then you definitely have a roster of movies that you just love. And
Right. So, what do you think of? Are you excited for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
I liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Hmm.
I hated the Tim Burton movie,
Right.
that which I guess it wasn't too well received in general, and I felt like Rise of the Planet of the Apes was really the right way to reboot the series.
Right.
And I think that the guy who is making Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the director Matt Reeves, who made Let Me In, the vampire movie, the kid who's a vampire.
Yeah.
I think he's a real talented guy, and I think he can do something really cool with it. And I think Andy Serkis, of course, he's coming back as Caesar, and he's awesome. He plays Gollum, and he's like when it comes to doing the motion capture stuff, you can't go wrong. So I tend to think that these guys are going to do something cool with it. I'm hopeful anyway. I actually visited the set when they were filming Rise of the Planet of the Apes. They had some press visit,
Hmm.
and I was there, and I got to watch them filming it, and it was really cool seeing Andy Serkis in his motion capture suit.
Right.
I mean, it looks at first glance it looks kind of funny. It's this guy in like a scuba suit
Uh-huh.
with like these dots on it and this thing hanging off his head, which is like a camera. But then when you could look at the monitor and actually see like a rough animation of what the ape looked like, superimposed over Andy Serkis, and it was just amazing to see how his body movements were matching with what an ape would do. And I'm excited for it, for sure. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Andy Serkis has been such a big proponent of the motion capture technology, and like moving it to games. Now, like while you were on the set, did it, because he's like even directing some of these things. Did you see any signs of him sort of like he knows pretty much what's going on, so he's like helping out Rupert, or like say, all right, I'll handle this part of it, or was he more of an actor and
Um,
whatnot?
I didn't see him telling Rupert what to do, but he there was this. We were there for 2 days, and so I think it was the first day
Hmm.
they have this sort of a soundstage area where they all work. I'm trying to remember what it's called now. They they have a word for it, and I can't remember what it is, but it's the area where the guys in the motion capture can all work.
Right.
It's a big blue screen area, and he was really kind of coaching all the supporting actors who were playing apes in motion capture. So and they were just kind of practicing moves and rehearsing and stuff, and he was sort of directing them in a way and telling them he was definitely taking charge of the situation and showing them how to work and what to do, and they all seem to look to him as kind of the veteran and the master. But in terms of him working with Rupert Wyatt, I didn't really see too much interaction with them, but I was only, I mean, like, I was there for 2 days. Like, that's like such a small amount of time in the scope of making that movie, you know? So when I saw him with Rupert Wyatt, he was in a car the whole time, and Wyatt was off behind the camera filming. So I didn't see them interact too much, you know? Um, but I think that you probably, if you're a smart director, you probably want to listen to what Andy Serkis has to say, because he knows it better than you do, probably. Right. I mean, he's been doing this stuff for how long now, right? So going back to Gollum, I guess was the first one, and Gollum and Gollum and Gollum again, and King Kong, and so you want to listen to what this guy's saying, because he knows this art for sure. And I think it's a shame that he didn't get nominated for an Oscar for Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah. As a matter of fact,
it'll happen one day. One day it will happen where a performance capture will be nominated.
He was nominated for Lord of the Rings, wasn't he?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think they've ever nominated anyone for. I might be mistaken, but I don't think they've nominated anyone for a motion capture performance yet.
Right. No, they haven't yet. They were sort of hoping for Andy when he first did Gollum, then hoping for him again when he did Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. I don't think there was ever another sort of groundbreaking performance motion capture yet.
And they tried to Fox was trying to, they tried to get him, they were pushing for him to get a nomination. They had him doing press around that time, and it just didn't pan out. And I don't know. I mean, the Academy members, a lot of them are older folks, I think, and they don't necessarily get it the way maybe we do. So it's going to take some time, but I think you're right, Mark. I think they will eventually see the light.
Yeah, it's a long way from when they tried to get Frank Oz a nomination for Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, man.
And,
wow.
That was really close, but he didn't get one. And this was really close, and he didn't get one. We'll get there.
Maybe Frank Oz will still get it. He still has he's going to play Yoda again, probably, right? So
I hope so.
So I guess now since we were talking about awards, we can talk about the Oscar telecast as well as the winners. Did everybody watch it?
Yep.
Well, first let's talk about Seth MacFarlane. What did you think? How did you think he did as a host? Can start with Zach.
All right. I thought that he was kind of a breath of fresh air. I liked how he showed up throughout the show. Right. I remember last year when Billy Crystal hosted, he showed up at the beginning and then kind of just disappeared for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Like he was just hired for the monologue.
Right.
And Seth felt like he was actually hosting. Also, he gets 1 million bonus points for having William Shatner show up. And, I thought he brought the funny. He was edgy, a little untamed for the typically kind of square Oscars. The best host in a while, for sure. Not that he's had much competition.
Hello?
I think we lost. Did we lose you, Zach?
Nope. That was the end of my statement.
Okay.
I think the last word there dropped out for a second.
I said that he didn't have any competition recently.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, you don't have. What was it? 2 years ago when it was Hathaway and Franco. So all you have to do is look back at that for real horror. But I think it's a losing scenario these days. Like as soon as you take the job, you're almost doomed, because it's so easy for everyone to be so snarky about the Oscars. Everyone watches it, but everyone's snarky about it, and with Twitter and everything. And I mean, I'm guilty of this as well, because it's just kind of a fun community activity in a way to tweet about it or comment on Facebook or whatever you're doing. It's easy to make fun of things. So I think when you take the job hosting the Oscars, you're really putting yourself out there as a target. And I think MacFarlane, he knew that going in, I'm sure, and yet he wasn't afraid to still do it kind of the way he wanted to do it, which was with sort of an edge and a more modern humor to it than we usually get. So it was a little, some people were a little offended by some of his jokes. I mean, I thought he was pretty good. Some people were upset about the boobs song. I guess
Yeah.
I
That
thought
was
it was funny.
hilarious. That song was hilarious. If
Yeah, so and I'm not even the biggest McFarlane fan necessarily. I thought that the show in general it was too much on the musical tip, which was a common complaint, I guess.
right.
I don't give a shit. Are we allowed to curse
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this?
Curse all you want.
Okay. I don't give a shit about Chicago, for example. Like, why are they paying tribute to that movie? Like,
Yeah,
it's,
that
Well,
was
do you know
weird.
why?
well, yeah, I do know why, but you could tell us.
Because the producers of the show, first time Oscar producers, produced Chicago those
Right,
years ago, so they wanted to pat themselves on the back.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
that
And
was
they also, I think they also produce Smash, right? Is that what it's called? Smash, the
yeah,
TV
the
show.
TV show. Yeah.
Yeah, on NBC.
Yeah, and so they brought Jennifer Hudson in, right? But she's got an arc on that show, and so there's a reason for it. But I found it to be more of a distraction. It just made the show run longer than it needed to.
Yeah, and if they wanted to really do musicals and music and film, they could have gone way further back than Chicago.
Right, exactly. The
You know,
musical.
the only time they really went back was not even part of that. It was for the Bond tribute when they had Shirley Bassey, who was excellent.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Got a standing ovation.
yeah. The music selection felt really random. Like I wasn't too sure what they were doing. Like what was the structure? Are they going through like movie music for the past I don't know how many years? But they've skipped a lot. So I was like, didn't know where they were going with that. And at
Yeah.
first I even thought like the Bond celebration, maybe they were gonna go through the music of that, like have Shirley Bassey come on, and then probably have another popular song come on, and leading up to I guess Skyfall. But I don't know. I guess they didn't go that route either.
Yeah, I had heard across the internet that Tom Jones was going to show up, and I figured he would sing Thunderball, but he wasn't there. Was that just me? Did I just make that up by accident, or did anyone else hear that?
I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying that much attention either. I had heard that, I guess as we probably all did, which originally they wanted to get all the Bond actors together on stage
Yeah.
for the anniversary, and that Connery and Moore couldn't make it. So, I mean, Sean Connery he's pretty much retired. And
Yeah, I thought it was that Sean was retired, and Brosnan. Does he still hold a grudge?
I don't think so because, I mean, I don't know, but he was in that documentary they did recently about Bond.
Right.
So, for something like this, I tend to think Brosnan would show up. But you never know. You never know. But it felt a little anticlimactic because I'd heard a lot about this being the 50th anniversary, and that they were going to do something special. And as great as the Shirley Bassey thing was, I thought that maybe that was going to be the first part of something bigger, like you say.
Yeah.
And it really was. That was it. Although the Adele thing, I thought was cool too.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like a show-long sort of celebration, and this
Right.
was sort of the beginning
Right.
to a much bigger, And then maybe that they were actually, kind of fooling the media a little bit, and then by the end, all Bonds to show up, and you were like, "Oh yeah, it's awesome."
Right. Yeah.
And no one showed up, so I was like, ah. And yeah, it did run too long because I did DVR it, and the last three awards that were given out was like cut off. I actually had to go on the internet to look at. But yeah, as far as Seth MacFarlane is concerned, yeah, I think he did a great job. He had some misses with the jokes, but yeah, he brought the same kind of irreverent humor he does with the Family Guys because I'm a fan of the guy, so
Yeah.
he did a pretty good job, and it just makes me wonder, like when I hear like some of these complaints about the Oscar was boring or whatever, like okay, what did you really want? Like okay, it's about giving out awards, and yet you have a host that cracks a few jokes, but it's not like a 2-hour stand-up comedian concert or anything. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
get a few jokes, you get a few laughs, and then you see a couple of people win awards and maybe fall on their faces. No offense to Jennifer Lawrence, but that's it. You just enjoy it. So it's
Yeah.
like there's nothing much to it. But I guess we can go into the actual winners now. Were there any surprises for any of you guys? I guess we can start with you, Scott.
I think Christoph Waltz winning supporting actor for Django Unchained was a surprise for most
I was gonna
people.
say that.
Um, I was really happy that he won. That was on IGN. We did we always do a list of what we think will win and what we hope would win, and we expected Tommy Lee Jones to win that award for Lincoln, and I mean I think it was generally accepted that Tommy Lee Jones was a pretty good chance at getting that award, but we were hoping Christoph Waltz would get it, and he did. I was psyched. I mean I love Django Unchained, and I think Waltz was great in Inglourious Bastards as well, and I think he really deserved it. And I thought he had a pretty cool speech as well. You know, a nice kind of respectful speech. The dude that you get the impression he's a guy who takes his craft seriously and is the real deal.
Right. What about you, Zach? Any surprises?
Well,
You can
I was
say
surprised by
Christoph Waltz also.
Waltz. But I was hoping Tommy Lee Jones would win. I actually did think it was a toss-up since he had won before, so he's kind of a darling. Although in that category, everyone had won before, so it was really a toss-up.
Right.
But I was still happy. I'm never like, oh man, I wish you had lost. I was kind of surprised that Searching for Sugar Man won Best Documentary. That was a case where I was hoping it would win, but I thought it was going to go to The Invisible War or How to Survive a Plague.
For me, the surprise actually came with Quentin Tarantino winning for Best Screenplay. I actually thought it was going to go to Mark Bow for Zero Dark 30. They kind of give this guy a lot of love, especially with Hurt Locker, so I was like, I thought that love would transfer for some reason. But yeah, when he won, I mean, it's a pleasant surprise. I'm glad he won. I just thought, like, when you expect someone to win, but then they give it to somebody else, and then for the whole time, like a whole light is shining on that person. And also for me, Life of Pi winning a lot of these awards. I mean, not to say that I wouldn't see it winning, but there wasn't really any buzz surrounding that movie in terms of awards, getting a lot of awards. So it's like, oh, it won quite a few awards. So
Yeah, Life of Pi. It's weird because it's like feels like a movie no one saw, and yet
right.
it did well. I mean, Ang Lee won Best Director. So, but as far as the script thing, the Tarantino thing goes, I think in a way maybe like I think he didn't get it for Inglourious Bastards. So in a way they want. I think that maybe played into the decision too a little bit.
Right.
But I mean, I was happy, and you get to see Tarantino acting like a weirdo, weird freak
Right.
during his speech, which is always fun as well.
And also in that category, and pretty much just anything Zero Dark 30 was nominated for, you can't help but feel a little tainted by that really unprofessional statement that some Academy members put out regarding not voting for a movie that, quote unquote, glorifies torture. Not that that's what it does.
Right.
Well,
that it didn't ruin the Academy Awards for me, but I thought that it was very unprofessional.
Well, I think I mean, Zero Dark 30 was obviously snubbed, I guess. Well, I suppose that's my opinion to say it was snubbed, but it was. Did it win anything last night? I don't think it won
I don't think so.
a single award. And at one time, it was really a front runner to win a lot of the big stuff. So there were a lot of politics involved in kind of bringing that movie down, and I think it's a real shame that that's what happened. Because for my money, I would have wanted Zero Dark 30 to win Best Picture. I don't know what you guys thought of that film.
I actually saw it. It was pretty good. Excellent movie. The film actually that I thought was gonna like sneak in a lot of the awards was gonna be a Silver Linings Playbook. I mean, of course, it got Best Actress, but I thought like the way how a lot of, especially the Golden Globes, even though you really wouldn't want to measure the Golden Globes to to determine what Oscar will win, but it got a lot of love over there. So I was like, oh, maybe, uh, a lot of people like Silver Linings Playbook. So, yeah, I'm surprised it didn't get a lot more awards than it actually did. The question I also want to ask, there was an actual tie. What was it? It was for
Sound editing.
Sound editing. Has there ever been a tie in the Oscar history before?
Yes, the last time there was a tie was in 1994 for live action short.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a surprise. Also a surprise.
Yeah, and I think there have been a couple of I don't know the dates exactly, but there were a couple of major categories that have tied as well, like dating back to like the '60s, maybe like best actor or something.
Right.
It has happened rarely, but it has happened before. But yeah, that was kind of a weird moment because who knew that could even happen unless you're an Oscar expert, right?
Right. Um,
Especially in a category like that where no one even knows, like unless unless you work in that field or a real techie type person. I'm not sure how many of us can really differentiate in those categories as to what's truly worthy of winning. I know I can.
right. Now, as for the non-surprises, I mean, I guess for my money would be Daniel Day-Lewis, right? Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, sure. I think we pretty much knew he would win, and I guess deserved to win as well.
Right.
I read something funny last night where I guess Daniel Day-Lewis said something in his speech about like where they always do. He said something about his fellow nominees, how they were all. I don't remember the wording, but basically the gist of it was they were all of equal talent or ability or something. And someone tweeted last night. They were like, "Oh yeah, so Daniel Day-Lewis just said that that who's the guy from Silver Linings Playbook?
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper. That he and Bradley Cooper have the same level of talent, or something like that. And it's like, kind of made me chuckle. It's like sometimes these awards aren't all that fair because ultimately, Bradley Cooper's he's fine and all, but Daniel Day-Lewis is, I think, kind of a next level talent, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, maybe with age, if Bradley Cooper is in the business as long as Daniel, he'll evolve as an actor.
He could make
Yeah,
the
he might.
team too.
Right?
What was that?
The A-Team Part 2.
Right. It's a shame that movie won't be made, right?
Yeah, it's a massive shame.
Wasn't he? Didn't he used to play a bad guy on Alias?
No, he
Or
was
love
a hero
interest
on
or
Alias.
something?
That was the first thing I saw him in. He was Sydney's friend, and he was like the regular guy, part of her regular life, as
Okay.
opposed to her spy life. But then after
Right.
that escalated, he was written off.
Yeah.
He used to play.
last season though, which was nice.
He did. Okay.
Yep.
He used to play I remember there was a movie called Failure to Launch with Matthew McConaughey and Sarah Jessica Parker,
Right.
and he played the kind of wacky friend, like Matthew McConaughey's kind of wacky, funny comic relief buddy. So his career has definitely had this trajectory. He didn't just start as an A-list star for sure.
Yeah, and he was the douchebag in Wedding Crashers.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Then you get someone like Jennifer Lawrence, who was basically, she's only 22 years old. She already won Best Actress, and she was just kind of almost immediately deemed the hot new A-list actress by Hollywood at that young age. So it's interesting how careers can pan out that way. And I was also thinking about forgive me guys because I'm blanking on a lot of names this morning. But what's the actress who was in Les Mis? Who she
Anne
was
Hathaway?
in? No, not a Hathaway, but the
Amanda
Seyfried.
Yeah, Seyfried. She when she was up on stage doing the Les Mis number, I was thinking, God, she used to play second fiddle to Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
Right? And where's Lindsay now? So so you never know. And it's one of those funny things about Hollywood because you hear stories about someone like Lindsay maybe not being the nicest person on set or whatever. And it's like you never know where you're going to be and where the person who you're being a bitch to is going to be a few years from now. So.
Right.
I guess it shows that, on one level it really is still about, hard work and being nice to people,
It's true.
Now,
which is good.
Yeah.
the the fact that Jennifer, how they always talk about the curse of winning best actor or actress. Um, with her career kind of set, like she has these big franchises already in place. Do you see that? I mean, anything can happen, right? You never know what will happen, but you see that curse ever hitting Jennifer Lawrence about like never sort of getting to that heights again with in terms of not necessarily winning awards, but just like getting bigger films. Like she'll just drop off of the face of the earth after winning Best Actress, knowing she has these two big franchises already, X-Men and The Hunger Games. Do you foresee this happening to her?
Well, she. I mean, you can't go much bigger than the Hunger Games franchise, right? I mean, um, it's definitely one of the big ones
Right.
these days. So the X-Men thing, that's different. I think because it's a little more. It's kind of an ensemble thing, and
Right.
um, it's a little more niche. Like I always use my father-in-law as like a test subject. Like, would he go see this movie or not? And, like, he would definitely go see Hunger Games, but he wouldn't go see X-Men. So like, so I think in terms of like a franchise that's going to maintain you as a superstar, Hunger Games is more for her.
Especially as the lead.
Yeah, she's the lead. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know what her contract is, but I wouldn't be surprised if we only get one or two more X-Men movies out of her. And but I don't know. I mean, she's still so young. So many things can happen. She's already won Best Actress. I think she's probably. She doesn't seem to have a lot of it. Can be the personal life thing. They go back to Lindsay Lohan. Like Lindsay Lohan had this sort of, troubled personal life that really impaired her career. You don't, and I don't follow the celebrity gossip stuff too much, but I don't think you hear too much about Jennifer Lawrence like being out and about and drunk or anything, do you? So
No.
I think that plays into it as well. So I would think that she's going to stick around for a while,
Right.
but that's just a guess. You ultimately never do know. I think she's very talented. She's obviously super hot,
Yeah.
and she's a funny. I mean, just seeing her kind of on the red carpet yesterday, she's got a good personality as well, and that goes a long way. You don't just have to make these movies and get the job on these movies, but you also have to be able to sell these movies, and you have to be able to appeal to your audience. You want people to want to go see you. That's why there's so much. I think there's so much kind of negativity directed towards Kristen Stewart. It's not just about the Twilight movies, which are so easy to make fun of. She also doesn't come across all that well in these public settings. I mean, did you see the way she was when she presented last night, Kristen Stewart? She sort of just goes up on stage and she can't even stand up straight, and she's like doesn't smile, it seems, and just doesn't.
Part of the standing up straight is because she cut her foot open. If we saw her on the red carpet, she was using crutches to keep up.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen her stand up straight though.
Yeah, she is kind of a block of wood with no personality or interest in wherever she is.
Yeah, so I mean,
She would
because
always rather be at home in sweatpants. You get the impression.
right, yeah, that's what I mean. And so I don't know. I mean, you don't have to be, you don't have to go to the Oscars. If you'd rather go home and stop being in movies, you can do that as well. But Jennifer Lawrence, you get the sense that this is really something she really wants to do it. She's good at it. And so I think maybe that's an indication that she's probably going to be around for a while.
Right. And I guess finally, before we leave the Oscar topic, the Best Picture, Argo winning. Was that a surprise for anyone, or did you think like they gave it to that movie because of how they snubbed Ben Affleck? Like, any surprise there?
Well, I think it was a little surprising, not because of Ben Affleck being snubbed, which was a huge surprise in and of itself, but because, like what we were previously talking about with Zero Dark 30, there was a little controversy about the accuracy of the movie in that. Like, everyone on Facebook, when I opened up this morning, was complaining about not enough Canada, which I thought was kind of hilarious. They're like, no, they just gave Canada a throwaway line in the movie when they were so much more responsible than the CIA was for the events. And I guess they would appreciate that more than making a cool movie. But it's one of those, maybe they wouldn't honor it because of its various liberties. But I am glad that it won.
Yeah, I think that I think it was expected to win, and it's fine. I mean, I think you can't expect the Oscars to really think outside the box too much and go with a totally like surprising pick or the real artsy film. It's going to go with the kind of down the middle of a mainstream appeal. And
like
excuse me,
like the artist. That was kind of an outlier.
Well, I'm not sure that I would agree, because I think The Artist is a movie that made people like my father-in-law think he was being really kind of experimental and daring in his viewing choices, but it's kind of it's sort of a real crowd-pleasing, easy movie. But yeah, I mean,
a remake of Singing in the Rain.
Well, and I mean, I understand your point too. I mean, it is for sure. I mean, I remember talking to not to keep talking about all my family members here, but I remember talking to my wife's uncle about movies, and he was like, the idea of going to see a black and white movie was like insane to him. Like he thought, like he didn't think he was getting his money's worth, So it's kind of, it depends on where you're coming from. But I mean, I thought Argo. I mean, Argo. It's good, but I don't think that it was the best movie of the year. But the Oscars aren't always. That's not what they're always about. And you're right. Some of it also is about, well, all right. So we didn't give it to Affleck specifically, but we'll represent on the Best Picture front instead, or it's like I was saying before about, Tarantino didn't win for Inglourious Basterds, a couple of years back, so let's give it to him this time. Like, there's a lot of considerations that come into it as well.
Right.
All right, so yeah, I love that movie when it came out. Beginning of this race, you would think it would be Zero Dark 30, or even maybe Silver Linings Playbook, but Argo is a worthy choice, I guess. Can't complain.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch. I mean, I don't pay too much attention to the awards season stuff, but I mean, there's people who track every award and the path, like the PR campaigns that each film has, and it's interesting to see like how a movie can kind of go up and down in its prospects of winning as you get closer to the big day. And there was a time when it wasn't Argo at all, So there's a lot that goes into it beyond just the quality of the film, for sure. There's a lot of politics. There's it has to do with keeping people happy. It has to do with how much money you spend on promoting it to the Academy members. It has to do with like what kind of did Affleck go out and do interview after interview about it? Like there's so much that goes into it, and so much inside baseball as well that like we'll never even know really what went on. But hey, it let Clooney win another Oscar, so that's always good. It was funny seeing him up there with an Oscar for it.
Yeah, and because of all the politics involved, I think that for me, I'm less into who wins what, and kind of just being into the show and celebrating all the movies that come out. I mean,
right.
I don't mean to get all sappy and everybody wins, but it is, just great to kind of celebrate the year in film.
Yeah, I think you're right, Zach. It's like not everyone. You're never gonna please everyone anyway, right? And knowing that there is so much more to it than just quality, and that's also such an intangible. I mean, everyone is going to have a different idea of what the best film is anyway. That you're right. You do have to just kind of take it for what it is, which is a celebration of movies, and good and bad, I suppose. And that's why the people picking on McFarlane or the host or whatever, that gets a little old too, because it is kind of like, you know, why are you even watching it if you have such an issue? You know what you're getting going into it, right? It's an award show for a bunch of rich people, so it has to be more to it than that. It has to be that it's something for you as well, which is you are a fan of movies, right? Or you're a fan of storytelling, you're even a fan of celebrities, and you're the one you like to see what they're wearing on the red carpet or whatever, it shouldn't just be about making fun of it and being snarky all the time,
Right.
which seems like that's where it's going in a way.
Right. I guess we can move on to that. We'll just move on to these two topics real quick. We don't have to comment too much about it. But first, April O'Neil is officially cast as. I mean, Megan Fox is officially cast as April O'Neil. Big shocker considering the fallout with Michael Bay from the Transformers movies. Like, what do you guys think of this development? Can go with Scott.
Yeah, it's funny because we had heard so much about the bad blood between them when they were getting ready to make the third Transformers movie. But obviously her career has not gone in the direction she wanted it to since then. I'm not sure what's in it for Michael Bay necessarily, because she is. I mean, there is a little bit of Megan Fox kind of being washed up,
Right.
maybe for lack of a better term, and I would think that you're appealing to sort of a younger demo with a Ninja Turtles movie anyway. So is Megan Fox, when the movie comes out 2 years from now, whenever, is she going to be seen as an old lady at that point?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're like a 14-year-old guy, maybe Megan Fox is kind of old, older. So I don't know.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe they could have before last night.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird because, like you said, what's in it for Michael Bay? Like, he doesn't necessarily. It's not like he needed Megan Fox to sort of draw in a certain amount of crowd, or like, oh my God, we definitely need a Megan Fox. Even though we are talking about the movie, so it could have been a smart decision, depending on how you look at it. But it was really a weird twist. Like, who approached who is like the one thing you gotta really think about, right?
Yeah, and the movie itself has had there has been negativity surrounding it. People weren't happy with the premise that they were, what was it, that they're aliens or something now, and the movie was kind of set. It was pushed back and being rewritten, I guess, and so maybe this is also an attempt at some like PR damage control, get a familiar face associated with it like that, and time will tell. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's still the same director on board, though, right?
Yeah. What's his name?
What's the guy who did Wrath of the Titans and
Liebsman or something?
yeah, right, Jonathan Liebsman, or however you pronounce it, right?
Right.
So I wonder if they've scrapped that entire concept about it was that they were going to be from outer space, right? That was the new premise, I believe.
Yeah, something about the Foot Clan being like cops or an army unit,
Yeah,
or something like that. Also,
And
Yeah.
instead of it being Shredder, it's Colonel Schrader. I was like,
yeah, and I can see how this like stuff is sacred to some people. Not me. I was never a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles guy. I was a Power Rangers guy. Maybe I was like a year or two too young. But
yeah.
I can definitely see how it would upset the longtime fans. I think that ultimately, if you have the turtles hanging out in the sewer eating pizza, then no one will mind the various liberties you take.
Yeah, as long as it has the essence.
I guess there is a line where too much is too much
Yeah, as long as
for
it
the
has
fans to be able to take.
the essence of the turtles, I guess. The next news item, I don't know, Scott, was it you who wrote up this or did this video about the timeline of the X-Men and how confusing it is?
Oh,
Class?
yeah, I guess. I don't think that. I mean, that wasn't a new thing, but certainly there's been talk about that. Maybe they So, Bryan Singer just said that he just told my colleague Roth Cornett that he's planning on fixing some of the mistakes that were made in X-Men: The Last Stand, right?
Right.
Did Roth? Are you talking about the video about the effed up timeline of the
Yeah.
X-Men
Yeah.
movies?
That's before this news came out. It was like, when First Class came and we are like, after that movie, we thought about it. It was like, wait a minute, but that doesn't make any sense with The
Yeah,
Last Stand, and even with X-Men Origins, like
yeah,
none of it makes sense.
right, yeah. So I did a video.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did that like last year. I don't
Yeah.
know if you saw it recently, but
Yeah. It was last year I saw it. Yeah.
okay, we always embed. It's a video, so we always embed it in articles that we about X-Men, and it's like a little animated infographic where it just kind of goes through and points out some of the bigger inconsistencies between the X-Men First Class and the original three movies. And there are a lot of inconsistencies for sure. Not that that impacts your enjoyment of the movie, but I mean, I loved X-Men First Class. That was great. But if you think about it, there's a lot that doesn't make sense either.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan
with the
Singer.
promise of more sequels to fix it, it's kind of like an insurance policy, right? Hey, studios, the movie won't make sense. The series won't make sense until we have this last sequel to fix all the consistency errors.
Well, maybe I don't know.
It will make sense.
Or they don't think the filmmakers don't think about it as much as we do. Maybe I don't.
I think part of it is Matthew Vaughn has that kind of punk rock kind of like, I don't give a shit about these specific movies. Therefore, Patrick Stewart loses the ability to walk before he is shown walking in the other movies that he didn't care about.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. And they made X-Men First Class really fat, like down and dirty and quick.
Yeah, it's something like 11 months, right?
Say that again, Zach? 11 months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's fast. So some of the little details get lost for sure. And it ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, like, if you're going to spend your life worrying about when Professor X got crippled, for example, or when the White Queen first showed up, it's like, you really need to get out more, probably, So, I mean, we made that video, but it was kind of a fun thing, but it doesn't affect the quality of the movie. And you could maybe even argue that if you're adhering too much to continuity, that you're going to be constricting yourself creatively anyway. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you're talking about movies that were made. When was the first X-Men movie made? Like 2001?
Yep.
Or something like that. So
2001, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, you're going back a while now. So let Matthew Vaughn do it how he wants to. Now, of course, Bryan Singer is coming back to do Days of Future Past, the new movie. So he's probably more interested in lining everything up with his older movies. So we'll see what he does. But he did just say that he plans on fixing some of the mistakes that from The Last Stand, whatever that means. He didn't go into detail, but
yeah. Hopefully they can sort of Brian can pull it off, especially with their plans to sort of expand the universe. I don't know if they're expanding it to the Fantastic Four universe as well, considering Fox owns both. Not quite sure yet. You know anything about that, Scott?
I don't know anything you guys don't know. But I mean, I think it's clear that all the studios that have superhero franchises are looking to Marvel now after the Avengers, and they want to replicate the success of the Avengers. So they don't look at it the way we do necessarily, like where we see. I mean, I always would say you have, like, in terms of franchises, you have Thor, Captain America, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men. I would think of X-Men as its own franchise, but like they're looking at X-Men and they're saying, how can we turn that into the next Avengers? What can we do that we really mine that universe and make lots of movies based on the X-Men universe? Because that's all they have now is X-Men and Fantastic Four, I guess. Yeah. So they want to really build out the universe and not just do standalone Wolverine movies, but they want to do standalone everything movies. Yeah. So where they're going with that, I'm not sure. It seems like they're maybe still trying to figure it out. But Matthew Vaughn just came on as a producer of Fantastic Four, the reboot, right, which is interesting. So having directed for X-Men First Class, he obviously knows that world, and so you got to wonder what's going on there, and if they are trying to connect them and to get kind of really geeky for a minute, Days of Future Past in the comic book version of that story, Franklin Richards, who is the son of Reed and Sue Richards from the Fantastic Four, he's a grown-up in that, but that takes place in the future, and he's married, or his girlfriend or something is Rachel Summers, who's the second Phoenix, who is the daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey. Yeah. So technically, you could have a character from Fantastic Four in X-Men Days of Future Past, and it would be consistent with the comic, and it all make sense and be a way to connect the two universes. Right. So we'll see. I mean, that's getting really kind of deep, and like, I need to move back into my mom's basement for talking about, admitting I know that, but I think, having said that, I think it would be great to see, so. Right. And also Franklin Richards is a mutant as well.
Yeah. I know we were short on time, so we're just gonna talk about what since you're a big sci-fi buff, and you also have a podcast, Transporter 3, Room 3.
Yeah, Transporter Room 3. It's so Star Trek only podcast. That's all we talk about.
Yeah, so I figured since we have you on the show, we can talk about like our most anticipated sci-fi films for this year, because it seems to be a lot sci-fi movies coming out this year than the past couple of years, if I can recall. So I figured, hey, it's a good opportunity to speak about some of them.
Sure. Well, the first movie that comes to mind, I'm not even sure if it's sci-fi or not, because it's kind of this mysterious sort of smaller project, but it's called Upstream Color, and it's I don't know if you guys have heard about it or not. It's from Shane Carruth, who made that movie Primer. I don't even know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I know that guy. He's making a new movie.
Yeah, he's got a new movie out called Upstream Color. It's coming, I think, next month. Okay. It's a small indie type thing. He financed it himself, or he got independent financing. He's making it outside the studio system. Right. But if you ever saw his first movie, which is like, you're going back like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, this movie Primer, I guess it's called. It's about these engineers who make a time machine totally by mistake. Right. But it's not, I mean, it's hard to describe the movie. You have to see it, but like, it's kind of about the ramifications of time travel, and it starts to get really deep and into your head. And have you guys seen it?
No,
I've not.
Never. Well, I'll be looking out for it, because Primer was a great movie. So. Yeah.
So Upstream Color. I don't know. I don't know what it's about. They've released some trailers for it, but it looks really freaky, and it played at the Sundance Film Festival. It got a really mixed response, but I'm really anticipating that movie for sure.
Right. Any other movie you're looking forward to? Any sci-fi? I'm sure. First I gotta ask, are you looking forward to Star Trek Into Darkness? Because I know you have a little.
Well, yeah, I mean,
small beef with J.J. Abrams.
I am. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I liked what he did with the 2009 movie, but I also am a little skeptical at times, because I'm afraid that all they're doing is regurgitating old ideas. Right. So I'm nervous that Star Trek Into Darkness is going to wind up being another version of Wrath of Khan. Right. That Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be playing Khan.
He's not going to be playing Khan.
I hope not. You guys hope not?
No, I definitely hope not.
I think it's going to be like somebody in his.
He thinks he'll be another eugenics person.
You might be right. Yeah, you might be right. You see that shot in the trailer of what looks like all the cryo-freeze chambers that Khan came out of, right? So I don't know how they could say that he's Khan. He's so different from Khan. But I mean, it looks, for what a trailer's worth, it looks cool. Abrams knows how to make an entertaining movie, that's for sure. So I think it'll probably be a fun and entertaining movie. The thing about it is, I wonder if there'll be any like real depth to it. Right. The best Star Trek is always something that has a little more going on below the surface than just action and adventure. And I think he kind of did that with the 2009 movie. We'll see what happens with this one.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was basically about to say the exact same thing. But, the 2009 movie, while excellent, it feels like it's kind of like Where No Man Has Gone Before. The second pilot kind of just setting up the characters,
Right.
allow for the deep allegorical stories
Hmm.
that the original series is probably most remembered for.
Yeah, sure. And it's harder to do that in a movie than on a TV show, I think. You have a big movie that costs a lot of money. You have to do certain things to make to keep the crowd happy. You have to have big space battles and fight scenes and all that stuff. And it's harder to service your characters in the 2 hours. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. And it has been done in some of the better Star Trek movies. Star Trek 4, the voyage home, I mean, that's all about save the whales, so
Star Trek 6 is all about the Cold War ending.
oh man, it's so good too. Yeah, and then not just the Cold War, but also about aging and facing the end of your career and all this stuff. And
Shakespeare.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And by the way, how many Star Trek people showed up on the Oscars last night? You had Shatner in the opening monologue, right?
Yeah.
Wearing that ill-fitting costume.
Yeah, it was a weird costume, like slightly out of sync.
Yeah, it was like they couldn't have tailored it for the poor guy. And then there was, of course, Chris Pine and Zoe Saldana showed up, and then even General Chang from Star Trek 6.
Plumber. And his introduction was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys, what do you think about Oblivion, which is the another sci-fi thing? It's the Tom Cruise movie that's coming from Joseph Kosinski, the guy that made Tron Legacy.
I just saw the trailer for that the other day when I went to go see Warm Bodies, which I really liked, and is a fine example of inserting, important issues and allegory into a mainstream movie. And the movie Oblivion was kind of under my radar, but not anymore. The trailer was really exciting. Didn't really tell me a whole lot. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it feels like a unique kind of 70s sci-fi movie. Not like you were mentioning earlier, like the end of the world.
Right.
After the end, what do we do?
Right. Yeah.
I'm a professed Tom Cruise fan. Like, I know there's been big, these big kind of blow up pieces on Tom Cruise lately, but I'm always a fan, not because of his personal life, obviously, but because he chooses projects. I mean, most of the projects, I would say 99 or 95% of the projects he chooses are something that appeals to a lot of us, right?
Sure.
And the fact that he chose this piece to do, I'm that much more excited for it, right? And of course, it's from the Tron Legacy director. Even though that movie was okay for me, but he did some really cool things with that movie that that I see could get better. And the fact that he has M83 doing the score, I'm curious to hear what that sounds like.
Yeah.
Movie. But yeah, I definitely want to check that out. I'm wondering, with that movie and After Earth, having sort of the same premise. I mean, sort of the After Earth aspect of it. Which one is most anticipated? Which one will come out on top? Which one do you think out of those two movies is something that you would much rather see?
I personally don't think that they're really competing, just because After the Apocalypse is such a broad jumping off point.
Right.
That they probably won't have the apples to apples.
Yeah, not really competing let's make a counterpart to that movie, but just kind of like how The Raid came out and Dread came out.
Right.
They were completely separate from each other, but they just happen to share the same premise. So,
Well, it's funny because they both they're starring, one stars Will Smith, one stars Tom Cruise. Those guys are both reportedly good buddies as well. So, but After Earth it's that's the M. Night Shyamalan film, right? Yeah. So I have zero confidence in his ability to make a good movie anymore, which is a shame to say. But I just feel like he has been so consistently disappointing in what he's done in recent years that I gotta wonder if that movie is just gonna be if it tracks with what he's done in the recent past, it's gonna get savaged by the critics and people aren't gonna go see it. And And I also think it's not. I have a feeling Will Smith isn't in it quite as much as maybe the trailer makes you think.
Yeah, it's
I think
probably
it's mainly
his son,
his
Jaden.
son. Yeah. Um, so I don't know. I wouldn't bet. I wouldn't bet on that movie being successful as much as I hope it is.
Right.
I hope it's great, but I have a bad feeling about it.
Right. Yeah, I think this is pretty much everyone's. I mean, I know it's mine. Probably people have jumped ship a long time ago when it comes to M Night, but I think
Yeah.
this is like, for me, his last shot of actually making a great movie. Because
Yeah.
after this, I think he's done. Like I don't care who you put in the movie, how much budget you have in it. I'm not watching it.
I thought that the last Airbender was his last shot, so I don't know. I'm not sure how he came back for this.
Because it's Will Smith, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
think
guess
him
so.
and Tom Cruise are like the last remaining, I guess, stars, quote unquote, that are left. Because we don't really watch movies for stars anymore. It's more of the premise and what do you have
Yeah,
to offer. But I think people still go out to see a Will Smith movie or to some extent a Tom Cruise movie.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's true.
so I think this is like, if you can't make Will Smith look good in a movie, you're done. Okay. All right.
There's another one coming up, which I mean, obviously, there's a lot of sci-fi stuff coming, and you can kind of classify the superhero movies to some degree as sci-fi, kind of, But um, Riddick, the third Chronicles of Riddick movie, is coming, I think, in September,
Yeah,
end of
September.
August
I
or
think it's in September. Yeah.
September. So not the
4th.
most high-profile date to be released, and they made the movie kind of. I think it's definitely a lower budget than the Chronicles of Riddick was.
Yeah,
The second
something
movie.
about independent financing, right? To avoid getting
think-
so that they can have their R rating and have their artistic integrity.
Yeah. So I am a big fan of Pitch Black. I mean, I think a lot of people are. The first movie was really good, and that was also a smaller movie. And it's the same director, David Towie, if that's how you say his name, and working with Vin Diesel, and they also made the second movie, which I guess wasn't a success, and maybe wasn't so good. But now they're finally they've been trying to bring the character back forever, and they're finally doing it. It sounds like, as you say, on their terms, and also Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica is in the movie as well, which can always be a positive. So I think that might wind up surprising people. I think Riddick is a character that people kind of roll their eyes at when they hear the idea of Vin Diesel doing a Riddick movie again. Right. But I think it has the potential to actually be worthwhile. And Vin Diesel did revive himself with the Fast 5 stuff recently, right? So this might be the next step in him reviving his career a little bit.
Didn't you want to do the Triple X franchise again? Didn't you want to revive that as well?
Yeah, I think they were talking about that as well. I don't know how far along they are on that, if it's happening or not. But yeah, they were talking about that for sure. I visited the set of the Chronicles of Riddick so long ago,
right.
And it was huge. The production that they were doing on that thing. I mean, the sets that they built. I mean, it was amazing to see, and a lot, all these practical sets that they built. A big throne room with all those giant statues and stuff, where he has that final duel at the end, and they had such big plans. They were talking about it as being like Lord of the Rings set in outer space, and they had all these ideas, and then the movie just didn't really work, and it didn't make any money, and that was it. They got that was the end of it. So the fact that they're bringing it back, I find that interesting, because I almost want to go back and listen to my old interviews I did with them at the time, and after I see the movie and see how much of their original plan is still going to play out now in this version of it. I suspect not much. I have a feeling they're going in a different direction, because you can't go Lord of the Rings epic on a small to medium sized budget.
I actually was one of the few fans of the Chronicles of Riddick, so it was kind of a shame for me that it didn't do as well. Well, I liked especially the director's cut. Actually, that one was a little bit better, except for the ending. I liked the ending of the original cut better. But it was kind of a shame that it didn't get to do the epic size Lord of the Rings thing that they were trying to go for.
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't recall if I've even seen the director's cut or not. But I mean, I liked it, the Chronicles of Riddick, but it just I don't know, it felt a little flabby and
Well,
maybe
if you go back if you go back to it now, it's very dated. It doesn't
yeah.
really. But in terms of the animation, anyway, the special effects.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess, and then another movie we're sort of looking forward to. Well, I am looking forward to is Elysium by Neil Blomkamp, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
His follow up to
The-
District 9.
yeah, follow up to District 9. So that's all you need to say about that one,
Yeah.
right?
So
Matt Damon, I guess,
and
is in
Jodie
that one, right?
Foster, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
does Man of Steel would you consider Man of Steel sci-fi or just?
I mean, you know, it's these superhero things. It's like, well, you've got you got a guy who comes from another planet in a spaceship, so technically, I guess it's sci-fi. But I mean, I guess ultimately, it's a superhero movie, right? So
It's about as sci-fi as The Man Who Fell to Earth.
that's a whole nother story.
If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to that channel, and of course we're on iTunes. So you want audio only, listen to us on iTunes or on Stitcher Radio. And I would like to thank Scott again for joining us. It's much appreciated.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great. Maybe I could come back sometime.
I would love that if you came back.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. You guys and everyone listening, make sure you check out Transporter Room 3 if you're into Star Trek. That's same thing. You can find it on iTunes and YouTube and all the rest of it.
And where else can they find some of your work? On IGN, I'm sure.
Yeah, to go to IGN.com /movies.
Right.
For that's mainly where you'll find me on the movies channel on IGN.com. And you can look for me on Twitter, Scott IGN, Facebook, Google, all of it.
Right. And
Just don't show up in my backyard. My wife won't like that.
Of course, you can find Zach and I as well on Twitter. My handle is @MarkyTuncher. And Zach, you?
Is my name Zak Wojnar.
And of course, you can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/popculturegalaxy.com. I mean, Pop Culture Galaxy, no .com. And of course, come to popculturegalaxy.com for your entertainment goodies. And once again, thank you, Scott. Very much appreciated.
Sure. Thank you.
And until next time, folks, I want to say peace.
Indeed.